ADHD reWired, episode 464. This is the podcast for those of us with really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD reWired is more than just a podcast. We are a community. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Go to ADHDrewired.com to learn how you can join us in our free and secret Facebook group. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter. You can request podcast postcards to distribute to your clients and support groups. Learn all about our award-winning coaching and accountability groups. You can co-work with us in our Adult Study Hall virtual membership community. You can do all of these things by going to our website at ADHDrewired.com. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD reWired. Today's guest is Javier Amor. Javier, I actually don't have a bio for you, so do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah, sure. Hi, Eric. It's so good to hear you and see you. I'm Javier Amor. I live in New York City. I am a neurodivergent, and I am an alum of ARC Season 26.
All right. So you had said it to me, I think it was shortly after the coaching groups, that part of what was so, I guess, profound for you in this group was not just that you learned how to ask better questions, but that the asking of better questions actually saved your father's life.
Yeah. So the number one thing that I learned from going through ARC is the compassion for myself. Absolutely. Hands down, the number one thing for me is that I just always beat myself up for doing essentially the same thing over and over again. And now I have less moments like that. And when I do, I don't beat myself up as much. So that's a huge one. But something that really that changed me is asking questions. And, we have CRS, so I can't remember shit. So sometimes I do forget, but one of the books that you suggest is, besides the one thing, is Change Your Questions, Change Your Life, right? Mm-hmm. And that you did not tell us to read that. That wasn't required for the members to read. But I know that it's a requirement for your coaches and your admins. And I needed to understand the mindset of the coach, which was you. You were my coach. And it just seems like I'm always impressed by the questions and the thought process on how to help us, how you helped me pull answers to my questions. And if I was going in a path that was not the most beneficial for me, you didn't tell me the exact way. It's through questions that you help me redirect. Did I stay on that path all the time? I don't know. But
do any of us do any of the things all the time?
But to the point that you were making about my dad, because of ARC and because I wanted to learn how to ask better questions, when my dad got sick, he was getting sicker, and he was in a hospital that was essentially, not intentionally or anything like that, but they were piling on medication and they were saying things were just not going well. And my normal way of reaction is to be a firecracker. Yeah. That's who I am when things like that happen. And it was in the middle of ARC. ARC started in September, I believe. And not even 2 weeks into it, my sister calls and she tells me what's going on. And, it's COVID. They weren't allowing, I couldn't really see him or anything like that. But my way of helping was through being there for my sister, for my dad on the phone. So when I would get on the phone it all started with physical therapy. They would say something along the lines like, well, he's a 0 or a 1. something like that. And essentially, like, don't quote me on this, like this is the formula, but he needed to be like a 4 in order to go to another area to show that he was improving. And that was troubling to me because in many ways, they were what I was hearing is that they were giving up, right? And one of the questions, and again, I did not go M80. Like I actually was calm and I thought about questions to ask them. And it starts with questioning myself. I didn't really know I didn't have the art of asking a question isn't a skill that I had completely honed in on. I just began the process. I read the book, Change Your Questions, Change Your Life, right after reading the one thing. And the question I asked was like, well, how can I communicate to the doctors to make them think without being confrontational? So I Googled at the time, I Googled how do medical students learn? What's the best question? One of the first things from my research, and I'm going to give a shout out to this TikToker. She's a medical student and her handle is Dor, DOR _ the Gray, GRAYT. And she is a medical student. And she explained when they're in med school, if one of the first things that they ask or they learn about is the differential diagnosis. So when you go to the doctor, or I go to the doctor, about like, hey, doctor, my head hurts. And they're like, well, you should drink water, whatever. And I'm like, okay, yes. You go home, drink water. I still have a headache. But when you ask the question, when you says like, Dr. So-and-so, what is your differential diagnosis for my headache? And the question that I asked physical therapy regarding my father was, what if my father needs to be a 4, right? Can you look back and you can put me on hold. Can you tell me what number was he when he came in? And like, I can hear like, them going through, I don't know what they were doing, but they were looking like, well, we don't know.
Playing sound effects to make it look like, to make it sound like they're doing what you asked them to do.
Yeah. And they couldn't answer the question. And I said, okay. I think they said, now that I remember, they said that he was a 1 and that wasn't good enough. I was like, so I hope you can understand where my confusion is, saying that he's not improving when you don't have the information about where he was when he came in. And it was like these questions, then I would get on the phone with the neurology team, right? The neurologist and the internist, and they would talk about different medications. And so like, well, he's not really lucid. I'm like, well, he's on fentanyl. I mean, he's like barely 170 pounds at this point, or whatever he was. I said, I'm 5'7", I weigh 205 pounds. And if I were to be on that, I wouldn't be lucid and I'm healthy, quote unquote, right? So they would just like think more and more. Then I would just do asking myself better questions like, okay, how can you help them to question the next move, or how to help him to stay in rehab and get better treatment? And that meant another question that I asked, so I was like, what is the minimum dosage of X pain medication that you think would help my father just enough not to be in unbearable pain? They're like, well, let's try this. And they took out another medication. I said, does this sound reasonable? What do you think? I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm looking at you for help. So my father was incoherent. He didn't know where he was. He was hallucinating. And they asked me to call my family to let them know that they'll make an exception for them to come in and say goodbye. Again, these are all different departments and they're just not really talking to each other. And they had like I just got them all into a room. Long story short, my sister and I said, we're getting him out of this hospital. He was well enough to be able to be transported. So we moved him to a different facility. And again, the question after question after question, no hostility. It was curiosity, really. I'm not a doctor, right? I was like, help me to help my dad get better. And I found the right nurse. That nurse helped my sister and I to get my dad to a point where he wasn't in the red, right? He wasn't on the way out. He wasn't getting a lot better, but all of a sudden his mind came back. So I know he would have died. There's no question about it. Just his kidney failure, his kidneys were not working right. It was an infection in his spine. It was spreading. He would have died during ARC for me, which would have been just over a year ago. We got an additional 9 months with my father. The questioning did not stop. I kept asking questions to the point where I had a relationship with the doctor. The doctor even asked me, well, what do you do? I'm like, I sell real estate. They're like, oh my gosh. Like you ask really great questions. And I'm like, I put mute on and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I really, part of this is pausing and saying to myself, the next thing that comes out of my mouth, is this going to be constructive or is it going to defeat? Is this being a judger?
And that's something they talk about in the book, that the judger mind versus the learner's mind.
The learner mind, correct. Yeah. So, and I had the map, the map is not in front of me right now, but I had the map here on my desk. I had the map in the living room. I had the map in the kitchen. And
so you're using cues all around you to actually act on this new knowledge that you're learning.
Absolutely. I need to have point of performance. Like it's a must. And for the listeners, that's something that we learned through the ARC program. Okay, when I go in the morning to the coffee pot, what do I see? I see my allergy medications. I see my other stuff. And I was like, oh, so I can pour my cup of coffee and I also get my medication. And it's there. There's no question, right? So if I had a question in my mind or I saw a phone call, I had to have the map out. So,
well, let's take a quick moment here to pause, go refill that coffee, and we will be right back with some more question thinking with Javier Amor. We will be right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from ARC. That's ADHD Rewired Coaching at coachingrewired.com. What would it be worth to you to be able to work alongside other adults with ADHD and have a space designed for you so you can develop skills and strategies to reduce your overwhelm and take control of your life? What if you could offer and receive accountability to engage with your priorities and to create your to-do lists that make sense for your ADHD brain? And on those days where the ADHD wins, what if you could have a team and a community there to help you figure out what you need to do to get a fresh start tomorrow? If this sounds like the community that you need that will help you get unstuck and grow, then go to coachingrewired.com to get your name added to our spring interest list so you can join us on Thursday, February 2nd at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 Eastern. Spring sessions start March 28th through the 30th and go through June 7th through the 9th. So why should you get a head start on signing up for our spring sessions? I mean, they are over like 2 months away. Well, because when you sign up early, you can lock in early registration pricing when you join sections led by ADHD Rewired coaches Kat Hoyer or Kristen Martz. We're offering you $500 off when you register early, so don't wait.
One thing I would like to say was Eric keeps asking about, have you accepted your ADHD? And I've always answered yes. I mean, I've accepted it for 25 years now, but I accepted it as a diagnosis of defeat. And what I see now is I see it differently. I see there's hope. People have eyeglasses and titanium hips and hearing aids and pacemakers and bionic arms. And there are tools that can help make up for attention deficit. And the bottom line is I have more self-respect because I've developed the capacity to do the things I tell myself to do.
What I did not expect was how quickly I would be able to open up and feel incredibly close to the people in my group, how much I would learn from other people in the group. the value of interacting with people who inherently and intuitively understand the same kinds of things I deal with, and how that makes it easier to work on solutions to move forward without getting trapped in so much shame and self-criticism.
Before this group, I felt overwhelmed with the changes I wanted to make. And to some degree, I still feel that way because there's a lot of things I want to do. And now I realize I can go slow, and that's okay, because it's relearning how to do things that work for my brain and work for me. And going slow will help make them stick. If you're thinking about joining this group, it's worth it to crack your own code.
Registration is by invitation only, so your first step is to go to coachingrewired.com to get your name added to our interest list. Then we'll send you all the information you'll need, including a 30-minute presentation about the groups and the steps you'll need to take so you can join us on Thursday, February 2nd at 2 p.m. Central as we kick off spring registration. And you can lock in early bird pricing and get $500 off. This is the coaching community built for adults with ADHD by adults with ADHD, where it's your space to experiment with all the different tools, tips, and tricks that everyone has to offer. We can do hard things, but we don't have to do them in the hardest way possible, and we definitely don't have to do them alone. No matter when you're listening to this, learn more about our upcoming coaching season and get invited to an upcoming registration event by adding your name to our interest list at coachingrewired.com. We can't wait to meet you, and we can't wait to grow with you. That's coachingrewired.com. All right, we are back with Javier Amor. He is a real estate broker out of New York and an alumni of ADHD reWired's coaching and accountability groups, and was a peer mentor, what we call admin with 2 Ds. And we were just talking about, really that impact of the power of questions and learning to pause, and then also, having those cues in our environment. So when we are learning those new things, because we know that ADHD, it's like once we learn the thing, it's like we know what to do. Then the hard stuff comes in. It's doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's DRS, right? I mean, you can't remember shit. Right? It's just, I need to have these physical cues. And I think you and I had a conversation not too long ago where the point of performance, this is going back a long time ago, like before I met Joe. So this was probably like 2007, 2008. I remember.
And just for the listener, Joe's your partner.
Yeah, Joe's my partner. Yep. And I remember being in my apartment when I was single in Hell's Kitchen, and I had Post-it notes everywhere. Some of them were like, okay, do this. Also, like the auto suggestion. I need those physical cues. Otherwise, it just goes out of my mind. 100%. 100%. And a little bit more about the art of asking is something that I've been dealing with for a very long time since I was a kid, is that I've always felt pain. I always, when I was younger, my doctors would say like, well, how's your sleep going? How's the, and I would like constantly roll my ankles. My mother told me like when I was like 2 years old, I was like, we were going up the Statue of Liberty, and like she had to like pull me from my arm because I was being a kid probably. And she like tried to lift me from my arm, and basically my shoulder popped out of my socket.
Oh man.
And she used to tell me this all the time. She's like, I thought I broke you. She was like, I felt so bad. We went back downstairs, and we took you to the hospital. I was so concerned. And essentially, I always have pain. I would tell my doctor, hey, my knee hurts, or my knee popped out, and it's not broken or anything, but something is weird. Because my ankle hurts really bad. And I would go to the podiatrist. They would send me to the podiatrist, to the shoulder doctor, to, and a headache. I always had a headache. So what I'm trying to say is I prepared with what I learned through ARC and the books that I have read, Change Your Questions, Change Your Life, and The One Thing. And I combined it into a little script. And I saw my doctor, I had the last appointment, and I always had a headache since I was really young. I thought it was because of my vision, because maybe I'm watching TV too much, or then it's the screens. So there was always like a rebuttal to why, and never really an understanding of why I have a headache and why I have these like weird pains. So I went to my doctor, who I trust a lot. I went to her and I said, I really trust you a lot. We've been through a lot together. And I said, I want you to know that you're allowed not to know things. I'm here. I'm still here because I believe that we can find a solution. How did I phrase it? I said, I'm going to say something that's going to sound a little bit weird. I said, but I'm not leaving until we have a plan of action. So it is not okay for me to feel bad anymore. And I need to know, what is the differential diagnosis for my headache? And then I stayed quiet. I did not say a word. I wanted to say so much.
One of the most underrated and probably most challenging skill that coaches do is they ask a question and then they shut up and just wait.
So hard. Those 12 seconds is so hard. She looked at me. I was like, can we please read through my record? And it's in my records from like 12 years ago. My head hurts and that my eyes are very sensitive and whatnot. Like this pressure on my head, and I'm always achy and feeling pain. And when you're in that much pain, sometimes you're like confused. You're like, what is going on? Like, I didn't do anything, right? I didn't go out last night. I didn't drink. I'm drinking water. I'm getting all the sleep. And I even said, I was like, before you say, are you drinking water? Are you getting sleep? The answer is yes. I don't sleep because my head hurts. And at the time, I remember I was sleeping like 4 hours a night. And for a long time, I was like, oh, great. I'll just do some more work or whatnot and et cetera. But I asked her, I was like, what's the differential diagnosis for my headache? It's just not okay, And she gave me the referral for a neurologist that specializes in headaches. And within, I would say, a month and a half, I was getting Botox in my head, and that definitely helped. But then I had to go back to my doctor, but I still had headaches sooner than I should have. And I said to myself, okay, Javier, you need to help them with questions. And I just asked Google better questions. Instead of asking, why does my head hurt? And why does my knee hurt? Why does my ankle keep twisting? Why do I feel tired? Because that's a dangerous thing. It gives you like a million different things and it just overwhelms me. The question that I asked was, what is a rarely diagnosed illness for people that have chronic pain, including migraines? And now I knew I had migraines. Right? Because what I deal with are migraines basically every day. They're just low grade. I asked Google the question. The reply was, one of them was fibromyalgia, and the second one was Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is EDS. And it's E, D as in David, S as in Sam, not just ED, because when you do that, different. So it has to be EDS. And I looked up at all the symptoms. The first one which is a common one, is hypermobility, which is something that I have. And
say what that is.
So Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a connective tissue disorder. We have collagen, which is collagen. Collagen is everywhere. The best way that I can say in my case is that around your joints, you have collagen, and think of collagen as strands of glue that's hardened a little bit, right? It's still pliable, but it keeps things secure. People that are listening won't be able to see this, but picture your hand, one hand's making a fist, your other hand's over it. Now make a little bit of room. That's what your joints are supposed to look like. A little bit of room. And the collagen wraps around your joints. It keeps it in place in a way. Well, actually, that's what it's supposed to be. But when you have a collagen disorder, the strands of quote unquote glue are looser. And also, there's also collagen in the joint area. So mine, there's more room. It just moves around, and my ankle will just slip out. Literally, it slips out of the socket. I have to stop, and I have to depending on my positioning, I have to just give it like a second, or physically manipulate it back in. And that happens in my knee. It happens in my shoulder for me. Now, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome has different subsets. Gets really complicated and scary to read about. But for me, right now, what I'm focused on is hypermobility, pain. There's some allergies that are, there's a lot of things that have happened in my life that I go to the doctor for. And yes, they give me an answer for that issue, but it's all connected, right? And it's a puzzle. And doctors don't diagnose this very often. And that's why it's
because of managed care. They don't have the time to solve the puzzle if it's not like immediately
also,
obvious.
They don't learn how to do the test correctly. They spend there's probably 2 screens for Ehlers-Danlos, and when they learn it, like it just looks different. Because when I did the research and I went to my doctor and I said, I'm still have a headache. I said, what do you think? Could it be this? Right? Because if I said it is this, I'm diagnosing myself.
Right. Which most doctors are probably like,
No. And I said, I brought the paperwork and I said, okay, here are my symptoms. Here's what the official website for Ehlers-Danlos Society says. What do you think? The immediate answer is no way. She didn't even look at it really. She's like, no way. I go, okay. I said, could you send me to let's go to a pain doctor because, I need help with my hip or whatever. And I would ask, I go to the doctor and it's a reputable hospital in New York City. And the doctor that's doing the test is testing the flexibility of my knee. The way the doctor did it is with my jeans on while laying on the bed. Now I can understand if I didn't have my jeans on, right? At least that she could lift my leg and they can see how far I was bending. She didn't do that. And she said, like, no, I don't think you have. And something was like getting at me. And she's the resident and the chief came in and I said, can I ask you a question? I was like, how do you test the ankles? Like, oh, you just stand up and flex your flex. I was like, okay. I said, well, we just did the test while I was laying down and I had my jeans on. I said, do you mind if we do this part again? And I did it. He looked at it and goes, yeah, it's obvious. Like, it's right there. And he talked to her. He was teaching her. And if I would have not asked the question, it could have been different. And I didn't go firecracker on her. I kept my cool. So, now I'm going down this journey of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And the more I'm reading about it, the more, even, I talk to people about it. This is probably my mission within the reWired community is to talk about this because I know that there are other people that their fingers jam up. I know there are people that have they can feel every bone in their back. There are people that have constant headaches. And this is the community that I want to express my experience with because they get it. And I'm not saying everybody here has Ehlers-Danlos, no, but me speaking about this will help at least one person. And I know that I'm outing myself about Ehlers-Danlos and all that, but I don't care.
Let's take one more quick break. And when we come back, let's keep talking about how the power of questions really can change your life. So we will be right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from Adult Study Hall at adultstudyhall.com. If you want to get started on the projects you have planned for this year or just want someone to body double with, then join me and hundreds of other adults with ADHD at adultstudyhall.com. Do real-time verbal check-ins help you to stay on task? Then join our Adult Study Hall Plus or ASH Plus sessions, where you can tackle anything from writing and job searching to cleaning and decluttering, creative work, and more. These themed and guided sessions happen every week so you can keep the momentum going and check in on your progress. Then, if you prefer to work at your own pace but don't want to work alone, then jump into our 24/7 drop-in room or ASH 24/7. Open day or night for on-demand body doubling any time of day that works for you. Learn more about Ash Plus sessions, our 24/7 drop-in room, and stay up to date for any new upcoming sessions by going to adultstudyhall.com. It's free to join for the first week and only $19.99 a month after that. And next week on Thursday, January 19th at 1 p.m. Central, which is 11 Pacific, 2 Eastern, join me for our monthly Pomodoro dance party. We will be working for a little more than 2 hours. We will work 2 50-minute work stretches followed by 2 10-minute dance parties. We're going to work hard and we're going to play hard. Sign up today by going to adultstudyhall.com. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from our patrons at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. Are the stories you hear on this show the ADHD experiences you can relate to? What other ways have you found value in tuning into this show every week? If you enjoyed the show and want to support our work, we would love to have you join our Patreon community by going to ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. Perks start at just $5 a month, and support can start at any amount that makes sense to you. When you become a patron at $5 a month, you can get ad-free episodes of this show, and at $25 a month, you can join me for a monthly coaching call that we do every fourth Tuesday of the month. And our next patron monthly coaching call is on Tuesday, January 24th at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And did you know if you join us on Patreon with our annual subscription, you can save about 8% annually, which comes out to about getting 1 month free. A huge thank you to all of our patrons who support us every month. So if it's in the budget for you right now, consider becoming a patron over at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. That's ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. And thanks. All right, we are back. Javier, when you were talking just a little bit ago, this word came into my mind, and I haven't said it out loud yet because sometimes things like resonate, whether it's a joke or something that I think is clever. It's like better in my head than it is when I say it out loud. So we're gonna find out how that is. So the word that came into my mind, because you're talking about advocacy, but it's not just advocacy; it's ask-vocacy. Does that work?
Yes.
Ask-vocacy. It sort of works, but not really.
Kind of hard, but yeah.
but that's kind of what it is. It's about like speaking up for yourself through the lens of questions, right? Because I think when people are being asked questions, especially questions that invite people into the conversation, because there's lots of questions that you could ask that still put up the walls and defenses. Like I think probably one of the biggest ones are questions around like, "What's wrong with you?" or "Why did you do that?" Right? Like, well, those are a lot harder questions to really engage with, right?
Absolutely. And I do my best. I always thought that I was on top of my stuff, but there are parts that I was missing to doing my stuff. And by stuff, I mean my work, my life, and there's still things that I haven't put together yet, but I continue to learn. Yes, I went through ARC. ARC changed me, but there was a lot of work that happened before ARC, right? A lot of work, years of mental health work, years of acknowledging that some things needed to stop in my life. I needed to face a lot of things. In order for me to be me who I am today, there's been years of work and sadness and pain.
Yeah.
But now I would say that, yeah, I do get stuck, but I don't stay stuck. Some people might be thinking, well, I don't know, it's not enough growth, but I know that's in my own stuff, right? I can almost read your mind right now.
So Javier, what is it that you think that I'm thinking?
No, you're like, if you could see what I see in you.
The Henry Rollins quote, that is, it's one of my favorites because it seems to be so applicable, like with so many people in our community. When, we hear them just like, "Oh, I'm just not doing enough," or "I'm not making enough progress," or like, "I haven't grown." And I'm just like, whoa, wait a minute. And so that full quote is, if you could see the you that I see when I see you, you would see yourself so differently.
And I agree with you. But I don't have that vision. So, and that's okay, I think. Right.
I think
That's a prime example right there of me not beating myself up.
Yeah. And it's a process and it takes time. To change self-concept as an adult, right? Like that takes time. It's when we first start changing the things we do, right? Like, so that's the behavioral component of it. All of those thoughts and feelings we have around those things, like it's going to feel like we're bending them and they feel out of sorts and don't feel like genuine or authentic because like it's the idea of rewiring our brain, our neuroplasticity, right? When we start doing different, our brain's like, wait, this is different. And our brain wants, in a sense, to have that homeostasis. So when we start changing things, sort of the alarm bells will kind of go off in our brain, right?
Oh, yeah.
But when
absolutely.
we can be aware of that process, we go, okay, that's what that is. That doesn't mean that I'm doing anything wrong.
Right. No, yeah. I mean, I don't know. We're all works in progress. I'm certainly that.
As am I.
And I'm just very grateful for ARC because it extended my father's life by 9 months. And my dad and I gave my sister that. Right. My dad and he loved me. I loved him, but it was expressed in quietly, let's just say. But my sister, who I love dearly, you got to say goodbye to him, like in the most beautiful way. In the most beautiful way, you got to say at home with hospice. She told me, she thanked him for being a great dad. And she would have never had that experience without asking questions. I promise you, he would have died. I called family. My sister would not have had that moment. My father would have died confused, alone, and that didn't happen. So thanks for building the space for us. And I know that wherever you, the listener, are, I believe that you will find a way. And I know it'll happen on its own time or on your own time, but keep asking, keep asking, keep asking, keep asking, because you'll have more clarity at some point.
Javier, Amor, I think that's a good place to stop. Thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your story and really your inspiration. I mean, it's what I've actually really enjoyed about this conversation is that, in a sense, we've actually talked very little about ADHD. What we talked about is how you, and this is sort of a macrocosm of what we see in the community, it's not just about, the time management skills and the planning skills. And all of that is important, and we do all that. But it's about bringing life into what we do in coaching and in the community. And, it does start with asking better questions.
The thing is, one of the things that I've noticed as being an admin in, these last 2 seasons is that sometimes members can't connect all the processes that we go through, or, that it's this and then this and then this, and then a whole different style of theory to learn. And then we're asking you to get emotional, right? And then you just get I don't know. I had moments where I was just upset because I was like, what is going on? But I get it. I get it. And for those that are about to embark on ARC, enjoy the ride. There's a process. And if you keep asking, I believe it'll get clearer. So thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Javier. I appreciate you.
Likewise.
This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening, and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD reWired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHDrewired.com. You can find time-stamped summaries and additional resources for each episode. Apply to join our free and secret Facebook community. Learn more about our award-winning intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. Join the Adult Study Hall virtual co-working membership community. Find all the other podcasts on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. Sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content that you won't hear anywhere else. And use the search tool to find episodes on specific topics. You can do all of this at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click on the Patreon button. If you are a regular listener, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to you, the listener, but it's not free to produce. Plus, patrons get cool perks like ad-free episodes and access to recordings of coaching calls, and $25 a month patrons can join me once a month for a group coaching call. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD Rewired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. Subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube to see selective interviews and other videos I've made. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends, family, your therapists, your coaches, doctors, siblings, parents. And if you, your coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at the website, ADHDrewired.com. If you are a member of CHAD, ADA, or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this show and all the shows on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. And if you really loved this particular episode, please hit share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I do count on you to help spread this message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other app that supports reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at Audible by going to audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Here is my list of must-listen-to audiobooks updated July 2021. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Attached by Amir Levin and Rachel Heller. Atomic Habits by James Clear. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson. The Coaching Habit by Michael Stainer. The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Rest by Alex Sujong Kim Pang. The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Make It Stick. The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown. The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. I always recommend to my coaches and admin that they read that book. The One Thing by Gary Keller, a required reading for all of our coaching group members. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Baden. The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. And if you're looking for something a little bit more magical, I have fallen in love with the Harry Potter series, and the narrator, Jim Dale, is amazing. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus, all of her stuff is great, starting with Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, and the Power of Vulnerability. And if you're an entrepreneur or leader, be sure to check out her book, Dare to Lead. Do you have something that you would like to share? Click on the podcast tab at ADHD Rewired. Click the button to be a guest at the top of the page and schedule a 15-minute interview. This is Eric Tivers, reminding you to keep learning, growing, and connecting. Self-care is not selfish. No matter what you get done or don't get done, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. And we don't need to do them in the hardest way possible. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.